Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are around the world. So I am super excited today. I have my lovely wife with me for the first time ever.
Hello, everybody.
On our podcast, and she is super looking forward to this, aren't you, Jen?
Of course.
We like to throw Jen in the deep end.
It's getting me into the video.
Yeah, so just to give you guys a bit of context to why we're doing this podcast today, because the team, we have an internal team here at CVG, and the team are talking to us about the importance of, telling our story. And sometimes, as much as we don't, like to talk about that, it's one of those things that sometimes people want to know a little bit about it. And we thought that actually, rather than being so much about our story, we tell you some of the pain points or challenges we came across the way that actually were really important things that if we knew them in advance, it would help.
Well, you learn from it all.
Yeah, and there's a lot that we learned,
which we can share with you. So,
yeah, there's a lot. So we're going to start first of all. We got some notes, some points we want to go through. Otherwise, we'll go off on a tangent. We got quite a bit we're going to go through. So we're going to tell you a little bit about our journey and what happened and how we've progressed over the last 17 years now.
Wow,
it's quite scary. I know. It's great, crazy to say, but it's been 17 years now that we've been in early childhood education, probably even a bit longer with the other side of stuff we had too. But tell you a little bit about, should we start right at the beginning, because I'll talk about the sports clubs and how that evolved and then go from there. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So when Jen and I first met, we were I was in a sports business. We were doing a lot of sports coaching in schools. We would do extracurricular, we would do before and after school clubs, all sorts of different stuff, didn't we?
Yeah, it's multiple, wasn't it?
All over.
Everything child orientated.
Yeah. And I think at the time we got up to we were working with about 150 schools altogether. So about 150 schools, we were going in, doing work. We had a huge amount of coaches delivering the PE curriculum, doing after school clubs, lunch clubs, tuition, all sorts of different stuff, didn't we?
Holiday club.
Yeah, and the holiday clubs, actually, it's a good point you're going on to that, because at one point we were running every single week, 12 holiday clubs every single week. Each club was averaging at one point around about 120 children per club. So we had 12 clubs running with, on average, about 120 children at each one of those clubs every single week. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make there is, like, we understand what you guys go through. We understand how difficult it can be. There are challenges along the way. There's a lot to go on, isn't there?
Yeah. So spinning lots of plates.
Yeah. And then we moved into, obviously, then we started getting into the after school clubs, so running before and after school programs. So we had 5 of those at one point, where we would have professional setups. We had 5 before and after schools running both at primary schools in the UK. So children up to the age of 11. And then we also had before and after school clubs running at secondary schools as well. So children up to the age of 18. Then remember the time where we went past, you found the building for our first childcare business?
Yeah, well, we'd obviously had Jacob, hadn't we, at that point?
Yeah.
And we were ready to look for a centre to put him in. But actually, when we were looking around the centres, they didn't tick all the boxes that we wanted it to be. So we started venturing off, didn't we, to look at maybe opening our own, of which, we found...
well, you found it. You found the perfect building.
Yeah, and then the name as well.
Yeah, the name. Yeah. Well, let's tell everyone, because actually, if I can dig a bit on that, because I think that's important. One of the things that I think it's quite common, because I speak to about 4 to 8 owners a day on average. And most of them say they got into it either for the love of childcare, because they were either a teacher, they love what they do, or they couldn't find the right childcare for their child. They couldn't find what they were looking for. It's quite common, isn't it, with a lot of people you speak to. Yeah. And that was our story. So as Jen said, we set up, we were looking for a facility for ours. We found a building very close to one of our other offices at the time, and then we started that journey. So do you want to touch on what you said about the name? Why was the name? I can't remember about the name initially.
I just remember going through all these different names in my head, and then fairy tales. I was thinking of, like, the princess and fairy tale. I love all, like, the love stories, and we're very big fan on Disney, and we had our honeymoon in Disney. So it was just kind of, I just thought it was a bit magical. With the magic sprinkles.
And then the idea of that, by the way, one of the things we did, just so everyone's aware, a lot of people struggle. They struggle to differentiate themselves from other businesses. But one of the things we really dialed in, didn't we, it was around how each room was different and was a more of a magical experience.
Yeah, and I think you're very creative like that, aren't you? So we were, the reception was just, I love the reception.
So what should we say? Do you want to tell everyone about what it looked like and what we did?
Yeah, so as soon as you walked in, it was a forest with all monkeys and snakes.
All hanging down from the ceiling.
I remember Nick went to the local park to get this
big tree. We had like a big branch that we carried back and all sorts. And it was all part of, so basically when someone came in, the idea is that, you know, most facilities you walk into, unfortunately, are very standard, aren't they?
Yeah.
The same. They look the same. And every single time you would do tours, you'd have someone come in and be like, wow, this is amazing. It was that magical experience straight away, because we're, as Jen said, we're massive fans of Disney, and Disney are a huge believer in touch points. Okay. So every single thing, that experience is all magical. And that's what we tried to do. So we made the centers look like that. So I want to come back a little bit, because I've written down here, we talked earlier about the importance of startup costs, because it's a common problem that we speak to owners every day. They spend a huge amount of money on resources, on setting up their facilities. And then when I ask them how much money they've got for marketing, they don't have a budget. It's a common problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you remember when
you can understand, because obviously with, you know, the focus is on, you know, the children having fun, but obviously you need the children in there to have fun.
So this was 17 years ago when we first started up. And the one center I remember that we're going to particularly refer to here, we were running an open day, and we assumed, you know, I remember we were dressed up. Do you remember we were dressed up on that main road where we had the costumes? We were dressed up. I think I was dressed up as Postman Pat, which is a big character here in the UK. Other team members were dressed up as the Tweenies, which is another online, you know, another cartoon program here in the UK.
And Minnie Mouse.
Minnie Mouse. We had Minnie, we had Mickey. And it's actually quite good how your inhibitions go when you become a character. No one knows that it's you in the suit, so you can get away with a lot. But it was fun. It was fun. It was a good experience. We did that a few times because we were one at this particular location was on a main like highway road, thousands and thousands of cars passing it every single day. So we were promoting the fact that the center was opening. But I remember, and I don't know if you can remember this, but I remember having a conversation with our business partner at the time, saying to them, oh yeah, we've had a great, great open day, and we're going to expect all these parents to turn up and then sign up. And you don't get those sign-ups straight away. There's actually a longer journey. Not everyone that comes is ready to sign up there and then. So that was a really important point. A couple other things that I want to touch on. I remember Jen and I sitting down, looking at having all the big catalogs of all the resources, didn't we?
I think it was a bit of an eye-opener, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We were just like looking through. And
price was one.
I mean, there were amazing resources, but the price was just
crazy,
insane. So obviously, you've got to have all the resources for all the different age groups. And when you calculate all that together, it was just...
It's crazy. And we had this big wish list, and we were going through circling and ripping pages out of the catalogs of what we wanted and everything else. And I remember doing it. And then you have this big realization of, oh my gosh, how much we're going to spend.
Yeah.
So one of the tips I would give you guys moving forward is start with the basics, start with what you need. Okay. Not every parent, and some people might feel contradictory to this, but not every parent judges you on, do you have the best, highest quality equipment? They don't. They judge you on how does it look, how does it smell, and how do you make them feel, and how happy are the team and the children.
Yeah.
Not whether you have the biggest, brightest equipment out there. Okay. So don't get caught up. I think that's one of the most valuable lessons we learned at the start. Don't spend a huge amount of money on resources, because one of your frustrations, which were, go on, I'll let you explain this one.
Well, I think because obviously moving forward, when we were very established, I would make sure, every month I would have that budget for resources, so we didn't end up spending an insane amount of money, because I kind of learned from it that I'd get really frustrated, because you'd end up spending all this money on resources, and they'd either just get completely ruined, or they'd just be gone missing. Like the puzzles has been a prime example. And you'd just be like so frustrated over it. Yeah,
so that was a common problem. Just a heads up on that. There's a great company out there as well that we work with. It's a company called Barner Crafts. What I remember this every day, we would get frustrated that parts would go missing on puzzles.
Well, we even got on the wallets,
Trays and
didn't
every
we,
sort to put
be
them in the
able
end.
to,
Yeah,
you know,
to try and stop it happening.
encourage.
Yeah, but so Barner Crafts, by the way, great company. Joey and Marcy, they actually do all the equipment where they replace, even if you lose one piece,
Yeah,
you can
which is
get that,
amazing.
which is unbelievable. So go and check them
Yeah.
out. Barner Crafts, great company. But anyway, we spent a huge amount of money there, but what we didn't have is the budget to spend on marketing.
Yeah.
And the next thing I want you guys to take away from this is, you know, be sensible on, first of all, be sensible on how much you spend in the first place. But secondly, if you're trying to compete, if you're in an area where you've got some of the big chains, okay, and as a business, childcare business growth, we are fighting against the big chains. You know, there is a place for them, but I also feel, both of us feel, there is a strong place for family-run businesses. They always will be, mom and pop facilities.
Yeah.
But one of the challenges around that is, you know, trying to compete with them on marketing. And what we often see, and I keep saying this in all the videos I do, is that I see when I ask people about budgets for marketing, I say, how much are you budgeting for marketing? Or a marketing agency told them, how much have you got to spend each month? And they say this set amount each month. And I already know that there's a lack of understanding around marketing. You know, we talk a lot about there is a cost to acquire a customer. And while we're not going to go into that today, once you know the cost to acquire a customer, the rest is relatively easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, once you know that cost, you reinvest that cost every time you want to get a new customer, you put that amount of money in, you get a new customer. That's the problem. What most companies do is they'll go, I'm spending $300, $500, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, but actually they just budget in a set amount, whereas they're not looking at what does it actually cost to get a customer into their business. So that's another topic for another episode. But just so you guys are aware, bear in mind that's something you really need to pay attention to, okay? Have a budget for marketing and know the cost to acquire a customer. Next one I want to move on to, because I think this is a big lesson we learned along the way, was around having clear KPIs and accountability. Because we were not involved in the childcare center itself.
Yeah.
We were not involved, were we? Should we just tell us, because you work in a different role?
Yeah, we were totally out of it, weren't we? So we didn't really have much to do with
the day-to-day. So I was in a different role, different building, not far away, but not in the center. Neither was Jen. Jen was in a completely different role together. But what were some of the lessons we kind of learned during that phase where we weren't involved day-to-day? What were some of the frustrations? I think one for me was not having these kind of clear KPIs and accountability, and not knowing what was getting done and who was actually getting it done.
Yeah, I think you were just completely, well, I mean, it was bad really, because we didn't know exactly what was going on in the centre at all, really, did we?
Lack of understanding around who was accountable was a big problem. You know, how many tours do we do? Were they following up with the tours? None of that was happening. And, you know, we had a great team.
Yeah. How many signups did you have within the month? And we didn't really keep an eye on it as much as we should have done. And
one of the things you touched a lot on as you started to dig into this was around, you felt that they would always try and work way below what the capacity was as a team. Do you want to go into that one?
Yeah, I mean, so I think well,
it was an issue, wasn't it? It was a problem. Like, as much as we don't want to say too much about why they did that, okay, part of the problem, and I'll just be blunt with it,
it's making it easier, isn't it, for them,
exactly,
rather than actually looking
so
the revenue, you know, the business side.
So just be aware of this, guys, because this is quite common. I see this a lot, and we're going to come on to who does the sales and all that part later on. But one of the things we come across a lot with working with childcare businesses, and you know, directors and managers do an amazing job of the day-to-day. But they are not salespeople. They do not want the centers full to the rafters. They don't want them full because they want it manageable. And they think that if you're trying to squeeze 120 children into a building that's licensed for 120, that's just chaos. They'd rather keep it at 80 or 90 because it's manageable and less work. And we don't mean that disrespectfully. We understand. We get it that people don't want to stretch it, but usually where the margins come in and the business starts to make money is in that 70% upwards, you know, occupancy being above 70%. That's when as a business you start to make money if you've got your ratios and things right. So I want to encourage all of you, that if you're being told, yeah, my team are following up with the tours, that person didn't sign up for this reason, go and do some digging.
It's interesting what you find.
Yeah. And you did a lot of digging in this, didn't you? You know, one of the things we'll go on to the sales piece later on, but one of the things that you did a lot around was the KPIs and accountability. And one of the things we didn't have, I remember you putting this in place and you highlighting this to me, was around incident or accident tracking or complaint tracking.
Yeah.
And so what we put in place at the start was we were just trying, obviously you have to keep a log of any incidents or accidents, but we weren't analyzing that data in any way. So we weren't looking at, you know, was there a particular type of accident?
Yeah. And overviewing, you know, so overviewing the actual on a monthly basis, the numbers per age group.
Yeah.
So then if it's kind of like highlighted that, I don't know, say preschool are having more accidents than normal,
Yeah.
then actually looking what is the trend of the accidents and incidents, and then seeing what the issue is. And then obviously then you can kind of unpick that, to address what's happening.
And that was massively important in the business, because if you look, there's always this saying around, you know, what gets tracked or what gets measured improves. And in this kind of case scenario, what we were trying to do is cut down on any potential accidents, or, you know, is there a commonality? Was it a particular room or age group that was getting more accidents, and there was a particular piece of equipment was causing the accidents? Or, you know, the same with complaints. Was there, you know, there weren't many, but if there was a complaint, was it a particular age group? And usually you'd probably tend to find the complaints would come more from not so much the fact of a particular age group, but it was necessarily. We used to find a lot of parents would join us because our centers would be from 6 weeks upwards. It's those first couple of weeks, those first couple of months when parents join you, that you get the most complaints. And one of the things I want to encourage every one of you to do off the back of that is prepare parents more. Let them know what's going to happen. You know, there will be accidents. Their child will get bitten sometimes. They will get a bump.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. You can't help stuff like that happen sometimes. But what you can do is help them prepare for those things. So I want to encourage you to do that. But we found it, didn't we, that maybe sometimes, you know, as we dug into it, that there was a particular thing going on. Maybe a particular team member wasn't performing, but it wasn't being highlighted by everyone else in the room. It was kind of being covered up as such.
And then you can support then, can't you, to kind of fix the issue.
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't actually do that tracking in the first place, then you'd been on the wiser and it'd still be happening, and you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Resolving it.
The next one I want to talk about, every time I go into a center, we talk a lot about incentivizing your team. And I love Disney training. I love going to Disney. If you ever get the opportunity to go to the Disney Institute, guys, go and take it. It's an amazing experience. One of the big things I remember coming back to you and talking about from Disney was we were incentivizing parents. So this comes back to KPIs and goals, etc. And we were incentivizing parents to refer the families, but we weren't incentivizing the team.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? We had that as a problem in the business. And one of the things that, you know, a lot of centers do is they give their team maybe a little bit of an incentive, but not as much as the parents. And one of the biggest takeaways I got from Disney was double the incentives you give your team versus the parents. Okay. In other words, make sure they are more of a raving fan of you than your parents are. Okay. Because, you know, I've seen, I'm going to share this story quickly, and I apologize for those who've heard it before, but it's important. I went to see a client. I won't say where it was, but I went to see a client, and we were there filming. We were there for a day working with them. And at lunchtime, we went out to the local supermarket, and the team member was in front of me. And she was asked, I remember she went to the till, she went to pay, and she was asked by the cashier, "Oh, you work at that childcare center?" And she said, "What's it like? You know, my friends just had a baby. What's it like?" And she said, "Oh, it's okay." And that was literally her feedback.
Oh dear.
That was her feedback about the whole thing. And you know, or whether, you know, I give this analogy all the time. You know, maybe one of your team members goes to a family barbecue on a weekend, and you know, do they, you know, maybe their cousins just had a baby. Do they recommend they should come to you, or do they tell them, "I wouldn't go there. It's the worst place to go to"?
Yeah. Okay.
So, and every time we do this as a training, we go into centers and we work with this staff in the nighttime. We say, right, we're going to put an incentive in place to your team right now. And I always, every time I've come back from these, I tell you about this. And they always say to me, we're going to put this new incentive in place. We're going to give them double what we give our parents. And we announce it in that team training that night. And every time we do it, the team go crazy. Go, oh, that's amazing. I'm going to go out and recommend my cousins, my friends, my family, everyone. And after they have that 5-minute buzz, we wait from it. And then we turn around and say, why weren't you recommending the center before? And it's kind of like a little bit of a light bulb moment for them. It's like, oh, okay. So for me, guys, just another key takeaway from this. Number one, we talked about obviously making sure you're not overspending at the start. Number two, we talked about, having a budget for marketing, knowing the cost to acquire a customer. Number three, having clear KPIs in the business, so clear goals, and having accountability, making sure different team members, because one of the biggest problems we had was around, we'd want things done, but actually no one was really accountable. As a result of that, those things would never get done.
Yeah.
Then next 2 points we want to talk about is owners and directors. Where are you spending your time? And we had this conversation last night because I was late rushing out to go coaching, and I was doing a call with someone, and the person turned around and said to me, I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the time to work on the sales. I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the time to do that. I said, that's interesting. I said, where are you spending your time? And they said, well, and they paused. And they said, oh, I'm busy doing this and I'm doing that. And I said, what's the most important thing in your business right now? You're not meeting payroll. You're struggling, financially, and you've got a 40+ hour per week easily. And plus you could work in the evenings if you're desperate right now. Where are you spending your time? And the owner said, actually, you're right. They didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
And I think too often, a lot of owners and directors get caught up a lot in the day-to-day. So let's just focus more around the owner side first, I think, because that's important. Number one, you need to be involved in the business. You need to know what's going on.
Yeah, just having an overview, isn't it, of everything that's happening.
Level 10 meetings, maybe, would be a good example there.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
So we do every single week. We follow EOS. You should go and check it out. But if you're struggling, a lot of owners get things thrown at them constantly throughout the week. Whereas if you do a level 10 meeting, everything comes to you in one meeting. It's a 90-minute meeting.
Yeah, and I think it gives you an overview, the bullet points that actually 100%. You need to know.
And a lot of the stuff that
chucking everything at you.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff gets solved, doesn't it? In the meantime, before it comes to you, because they just resolved it anyway.
Yeah.
Before the level 10.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing level 10s, definitely do level 10 meetings. There's a great video on YouTube of how to conduct them, so make sure you go and check that out. But I want to encourage every one of you, and it's a bit of a wake-up call, I think, and I do not mean this disrespectfully, but a lot of the clients or potential people we speak to, owners are spending their time being busy, but actually not on the right things. We talk a lot about video, hence we're doing video and podcasts right now, and too many owners are scared to get in front of the camera. And my answer always is back to that. What are you more scared to do? Are you scared to get in front of the camera or scared to meet payroll at the end of the month? And that's a really important wake-up call, I think, for most people. You need to realize that you've got to sometimes pick up the phone. You've got to make those calls. And we did that, didn't we? We switched because we were going to talk on to here who does the sales.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest realizations that we had, not only once we sorted out the KPIs, key performance indicators and accountability, was we need to take control of the sales.
Yeah, because we knew that was something that we needed to work on. So it's like, right, we need to do it.
Yeah.
It puts it in perspective. What's more urgent, like you just said with the example.
Yeah, we went from, I remember one evening, we went from 1 month, we were looking through the inquiries. At this point, we still had paper inquiries. This was a long time ago.
I know.
Things have moved.
In my head, I actually thought about the picture.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
All the,
the
spread out.
Prior to us working it out, it took us a long time to work the marketing out. But when we eventually cracked it, we were averaging initially about 4 inquiries a month, and we skyrocketed in the end to over 120 inquiries a month. And there was a photo we took with Jen where she had all these inquiry forms in front of her. And some of you are still using inquiry forms now. Like this was 10, 11 years ago, guys. So we need to move on now. You need to be using a proper system to manage your inquiries. But when we finally worked that out, one of the biggest realizations we had is that, hey, just getting the inquiries is one phase. Getting them to turn up is a next phase. And then once they've turned up is getting them to convert as another phase. And you need to identify where's your problem. Is it actually a front end lead generation problem? So we fix that one. Then it's getting them to turn up. That's the next problem. And then once they turn up is then get them to sign up. And what I often find is people always say to me, well, if they come for a tour, we convert everyone. No one converts everyone. And I would love for anyone to, great, show me an example if you do. But not, I've never seen everyone convert every single person coming through the door. A good good conversion rate is anywhere between 75 to 85%. That's great. But that's not usually the problem. The problem is getting people in on the very front end. They made an inquiry, but then get them to turn up.
Yeah, and it's the follow up, isn't it? To know, some people aren't available at that point.
Yeah.
So it's then, constant follow up to actually, like you say, get them to turn up and book the tour with you.
We even got to a point, I don't know if I've got one here with me. Guys, I don't know if there's a pack around by any chance, but one of the things we used to do, we would take out the parent packs. I was just trying to look around the office to find one, but we would take parent packs out to parents' homes, okay? Because we were like, we need to raise our hand and stretch that bit further.
They were very shocked to see me at the door, and I had that conversation and chat with them, and personally gave it to them.
Yeah.
And they were like,
it's a big wow factor.
And no one else ever did that.
No. So another tip for you guys here is on this particular one, I want you guys to start to think about how can you raise your hand and stretch that bit further, okay? And so this comes down to, right, people have made inquiries into your business. Number one, have you told your team how many times they should follow up?
Yeah.
Okay. And what they should say and what methods. Is it text, email, phone calls? What is it?
Yeah.
Or even turn up on people's doors like we did. But also, how are you differentiating yourself from what everyone else is doing?
Yeah, because I remember, having that conversation with the parents as well when I actually, followed up with them. Just followed up with them. They actually said to me that they couldn't believe that, I was ringing them so many times because they hadn't had a single call from any other inquiry that they'd actually put through.
I overheard that call. Yeah. I remember that one call. Every time I do a live try to talk about that one.
Yeah.
But I remember the parents said that they'd been for a tour. This was another call. Parent been for a tour.
Call, yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that one? And no one called back and how it made her feel. Do you remember that one? I'll tell it because I remember it. I remember this one vividly because this was important. I remember I overheard you sitting next to me in the office at home, and the parents said, "Thank you so much for calling me." So this is after a person had been for a tour. The parent turned around and said, "Thank you so much for calling me back because none of the other centers called me back, and it made me feel I wasn't good enough to go there." Mm. Whereas most centers or directors that are calling parents back don't call them because they say, well, if the parent's interested, they'll call us back. No, they won't. Okay. They will, sometimes they'll go to the nearest one, or, there's lots of different scenarios here, but I want to encourage all of you to call those parents back, remind them of the conversations you had. Oh, how's little Noah doing today? It was so lovely to meet him, and how he was playing with those other children. Spend more time on this, guys, but go back to the point that I made earlier. Like Jen and I would take parent packs out to parents' homes. Beautiful, bright, vibrant packs. And most of you turn around saying, I'm not going to send a parent pack out. It costs too much. We get that a lot, don't we?
Yeah, but then it's like thinking of actually, if it's that touch and that wow factor, they're going to come to your centre.
Yeah.
And then they're going to, have more bond with you, more relationship. You're picking up that conversation where you've left off, like you say, how's Noah, and, and then potentially they could then sign up, but that parent pack has bought you a new customer.
100%. And it took us maybe 15, 20 minutes to go and drop that off and have a conversation.
Yeah. And it was lovely to build that relationship because you've started from the actual starting point.
Yeah. And
then all the way through to them starting. So then actually when they start, they already feel part of that centre.
Yeah. Do you remember we had one parent sign up once that we had a conversation with her on the door. I'll tell you backstory to this. So in the UK, we have mailboxes that are in the front door usually, and you put things through. And I messed up. Okay. I messed up. I remember Jen telling me that you took a pack out, didn't you?
Yeah, it wouldn't go through.
It wouldn't fit through the door. And we're like, oh my gosh, like we've had these parent packs designed. And one of the things we totally forgot was not all the letterboxes are the same size, but it actually was one of the most critical things we ever did, because it would force us to ring the door, okay, the doorbell, or knock the door and have a conversation with the parents on the door.
Yeah.
Now think about this. Where's a parent more comfortable? Are they more comfortable talking on their doorstep, or are they more comfortable talking in your center? They're more comfortable talking on their doorstep. And, you know, we had one parent literally say, I am coming in. Do you know what? I made inquiries to all these different businesses before. None of them. And the parent came in the next day and they enrolled straight away. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. And I think as well, you know, different scenarios, Nick always saying, you know, they're not always ready to sign up straight away. I had another scenario where the parent was pregnant with twins, and literally they had the tour, her and dad. And because I followed up with her from the initial inquiry, and I had that constant touch base. So I always had that task to remind me, you know, and the notes, knowing where to pick up the conversations and constant touch base with them. I had like that relationship was unreal. They then signed up off the back of the tour, but actually then I had a reminder of when they actually had the baby as well. I then sent them a card to congratulate them, and it was just that whole relationship. You know, and plus difference. You've gained twins. From a revenue perspective as well.
And also as well, think about the other parents they're talking to about how you made them feel in comparison to everyone else. So just think about this. So, you know, I go back to that call I had last night. The owner turned around and said to me, you know, speed of response is key. Okay. So if we can, a parent makes an inquiry today for a parent pack, we would take them out to the parent. Most businesses only send a PDF. Okay. You need to be sending something out, you know, and it needs to look nice. It needs to look professional. Hardly any money. It's really important to do. Okay. Because think about this, you're trying to compete. There's way more competition now than there's ever been. And every single touch point you can create is going to have a magical experience over what everyone else does. Okay. And we'll do probably another session on this later on, because I think it's important to look at how you dial this in. But just on that point, this owner said to me yesterday, well, it's usually 2 to 3 days before I get a chance to call them back. So hang on a second, with the greatest respect, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to you, said, I am working from 7:30 this morning. I've got calls up until 10 p.m. tonight. What are you spending your time on that you cannot call a parent back for 2 to 3 days when they make an inquiry into your business? And she paused and she got a little bit emotional, because I think it was almost a bit of a reality check. And I wasn't not being rude. I think one of my roles is, you know, I need to kind of point things out sometimes that if people aren't doing it, we should be doing those things. And she said, you're right. I should be calling these back. I need to call these people back because I'm not calling them back anywhere near enough. And actually, there's nothing more important right now. I can't be payroll, and I need to get more revenue into the business. So the way I get more revenue is I need to call these parents. You need to take ownership and responsibility. So that was a huge change, wasn't it? When you took over the inquiries, you were managing them. We were taking the parent packs out. Sometimes, honestly, guys, we would be dropping off 10 to 25 parent packs every single week. That's not just inquiries. That was just for the parent pack versions. Okay. We would have, so that was just parent packs would be anywhere up to about 100 parent packs a month. And on top of that, the volume of inquiries, you know, phone calls, tours, check availability. So make sure you're raising your hand and stretching that bit further. Last one I want to touch on for today is around who should be doing the follow-up. Who should be doing the sales process? What's your thoughts around that?
I mean, from how we've learned, I think the owner should do it. And obviously then as you grow, then you could look at potentially training somebody. But definitely if you're in that position where you need those inquiries in and struggling, the owner should be doing it.
And you know, I'll hear reasons why people don't. Maybe they hire a virtual assistant or someone else. The problem is, even if you're hiring a virtual assistant, like one of the things we do here at Chalky Business Growth with clients that are overwhelmed because they've got too many inquiries, Jen runs a whole team around concierge, our concierge service, where we call those inquiries. Okay. So in other words, when an inquiry comes in, our team will do all the follow-up. They phone every single parent, they book the tours, they build the relationship. And then once they've been for that tour, we then call them and then get them to sign up. Okay. And every one of our clients can listen to the calls. You know, Jen really dials that in. That's her expertise. That's her area. She spends a huge amount of time with those, you know, doing that. But that takes a long time, doesn't it, to learn that center?
Yeah.
All the questions. Do you want to just touch on that? Like how much time and investment needs to go into building that relationship and understand how they work?
As in from the
concierge team working with the owner. Like, for example, do we give the fees out at the start? Don't we give them out? You know, how many tours a week do we have? All that type of thing.
So it's a part of like the onboarding, and we obviously have to, you know each center inside and out, and it's having that key communication with the center and the owner, the director. So then we can, you know, do our utmost to then have as many tours booked as possible.
But there's a lot of, in the first month or so of you guys taking over and running concierge for a client, there's a lot of back and forth, isn't there?
Yeah.
As in, you know, you're like, oh, this question's come in, even though you get all those questions pre-built.
Yeah, I was going to say,
there's some little scenarios.
We have a system where we have all of the questions for, you know, the center within the system, and as weeks go on, months go on, some question may come up from a parent, and then we just add to our list of questions for that center, so we know that center inside and out.
So that, but the point which you bang on, you're completely right about. The point I'm trying to get to you guys here is that you throw someone in the deep end sometimes. I'm not saying you as an individual, but sometimes people throw, you know, a virtual assistant in and expect them to sink or swim and get these inquiries in. And, you know, I've seen it where owners are not checking in.
Yeah, it's a lot of training.
It's a lot of training. And also as well, it's a lot of, you know, don't just assume that you've hired someone to do it, that actually they're doing it the right way.
They know what they're doing.
Are you listening to the phone calls? Are you checking how many times they've followed up? Are you stipulating how many times they should follow up?
Yeah.
And also as well is, you know, when was the last time you watched a tour in your center? Because I've told people to go in and watch a tour, the owners, and they've gone, oh, they shouldn't be telling them that. And what's happened is, what might have happened originally, the owner used to do the tours. Then as the owners evolved and, you know, the business has evolved or grown, the owner now doesn't do them. They've trained the next person.
Yeah.
And then that person's trained someone else as their roles evolved. And as the company keeps growing and growing and growing, the quality of the training drops and drops and drops sometimes, not all times, but it drops. And as a result of that, what happens is you're now in a situation where the person that's now doing the tour is not doing it anywhere near the standard that the original owner wanted. Do you find that?
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you, you know, schedule in, maybe whether it's every once a quarter or every 6 months, whatever you want to do, schedule in, go and have a look at it, you know.
Yeah, because I think the thing is as well, you don't want it then affecting, you can have all these tours booked in, but actually you need the conversion.
Yeah.
So that is key, really, isn't it?
It goes back
from the tour, making sure that it's exactly how you want it to be.
Yeah.
If it's not you doing it, you know, like we used to do it team training, didn't we?
Yeah.
On all the tours to ensure that it is exactly how we wanted it to be, and then try and get that conversion at the end. But obviously, then it has the follow up after.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
One of the things I think though, where owners think that everything's good, is because if the KPIs or the accountability or the tracking's not in place, the directors or whoever's doing the tours just tells them, oh yeah, everyone that's been for tours has signed up. How do you know that's happening?
Yeah.
How are you confident? Do you have a system where you can see every single person that made an inquiry and why they signed up, and, you know, did they come for the tour or not? How many times they call them? And we often find as well, you know, we had this with a center they've got 6 locations. And one of the things they told us recently was, they said, oh, people are just not signing up. You know, the director's given us all sorts of reasons why they're not signing up, but there's just this gut feeling something's not right. I said, well, your only option is to call every one of those parents that didn't sign up and find out why. And it was actually heartbreaking what they found out. I won't go into the details of that, but I want to encourage you, you know, if a parent didn't sign up, are you actually finding out why they didn't sign up? Are you as an owner if you know your conversion rate isn't that good and you've got good tracking in place, are you calling that parent or messaging them? I know some of you already say the parent doesn't reply. There's lots of ways to get a parent to reply. Okay.
Yeah. And I just think, you know, every parent's different, aren't they? Some may respond more to text, some may respond more to calls. Like, you know, you have to really find out what that parent's best at.
Best method of communication. Some might be Facebook Messenger, over email, text, etc.
Everyone's different. We're so busy, you know, 100%. As parents as well in the day-to-day that it's just really catching them at the right time as well.
And that's another challenge as well, just to touch on as well, is, you know, allowing time. Or center directors will always say they're too busy, and owners are worried about overburdening their team. And as a result of that, they were, well, I don't want to push them too much to follow up these inquiries because they've got a lot of other things going on and I can't afford to lose that person. Okay, well, if that is the case, either you need to do it as the owner or you need to train someone to do it. Because I personally don't feel, you know, one of the things I've written down here, who does the sales? And for me, and I think Jen's in agreement on this, is that I don't think it should be your center directors or your management team. Personally, I think they've got enough going on. And lots of you know who are center directors, known as center directors or management. Please don't get offended by that. We understand how much you guys have on. We know you've got a lot on.
I was going to say, spinning lots of plates. We understand it's more the child's focus, is
100%.
The day-to-day and the running of the center.
But as an owner, don't underestimate the resource you need to put into following up with those inquiries. Look, there's tougher and tougher competition now. There's more bigger clients out there. There's big corporate chains. They have whole office departments with sales teams in that are managing these inquiries. And you're trying to compete by giving someone maybe an hour a week to follow up those inquiries. You need to spend way more time as an owner making sure this is dialed in. If you have a problem right now with enrollment, my question to you is, look in the mirror and ask yourself, as an owner, am I spending enough time looking at where the challenges are around enrollments right now? So, guys, we could probably talk to you. Go on, you want to add something to that?
No. I was literally just thinking in my head that in our scenario, once I took over, you know, and you have that time doing the inquiries, it was at a point where we were that full that the actual manager, the director, said to me, we can't take any other children on and settle any more children. And then we had to kind of like, you know, schedule them throughout the weeks you know, from January or if it was September and stuff, because we'd just got too many. And this is obviously a good problem to have.
This is actually something. Oh, sorry.
But very key why they, you know, you need to focus on it.
This is the last tip for you guys, which is, I think, is important as well. We've got a client right now, very, very full, huge wait list. But they said the other day they want to push their tours back now until a few months from now. And my question, because they obviously want to prioritize the tiny certain age group that they've got. My answer back to that is, you know, I play DA a lot to try and like question stuff and, you know, question, is that the right thing to do? And they said, well, we just don't have capacity to do any more tours. I said, but, you know, the last thing you want to do is make a parent wait 3-4 months for a tour because they potentially might go elsewhere. I said, well, you know, why not do, for example, we used to do this a lot. We would have weekend tours and we would schedule up to 36 tours on a weekend, usually 2 people per session.
Not every weekend.
Not every weekend.
Obviously, everybody needs a life.
Yeah, exactly. But we would do it. We would do it, you know, maybe once a month or, you know, once every 2 weeks. If we knew that, because don't forget, a lot of the parents are looking right now are not looking, like you said earlier, they're not looking for childcare right away. They might be looking for childcare 6, 12, 18 months from now. And I encourage you, don't put that parent off because someone else will do a tour and then you've wasted that opportunity. And also as well, there's one particular individual I know we have right now that uses childcare automation. Okay, we get to see all the data that's in their systems. And there's one particular client that's using that system right now that has over 1,800 inquiries that have not been responded to. Yeah, exactly. And Go on, sorry.
For me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're paying for all those ads, so you've got all that outgoing,
Yeah.
but then you're not actually following up
Yeah.
with the inquiries or getting the sign-ups off the back of it to
Yeah.
replace it. Yeah.
And the problem is they're full. And I understand that, but it's not now it's going to affect them.
Yeah.
So if you are
Right.
full, it's going to affect you 12, 18 months, 24 months from now, because all those parents are going to turn and go, well, they never got back to me.
Yeah.
You have most people have a very different mindset when you're full versus you're not full. If you're not full, you know, you're doing everything you can, maybe hopefully you are, to get to those inquiries. When you are full, people don't respond. So just if you are in that situation, guys, please get back to them. You know, raise your fees. There's all sorts of different things you should be doing around that, but communicate with parents.
Yeah. And just organize your wait list, and you get in a really good position there by, if a space comes available, you know, you can plug that gap.
Yeah.
And
we had a client recently, didn't we, that they actually opened up another room. They found an extra space, or they created an extra space that was only used for after school.
Yeah.
And then they created this extra space, they converted it, and they've just generated another 300,000 into their business.
Yeah.
Because they had this huge list that the concierge team had built up. Yeah. That actually they knew there was demand for that particular age group, so they managed to fill it. Literally, they announced it, they got the funding, and the room was full within a week. Okay. Yeah. So the point I'm making here, guys, is the more organized you are, please make sure you get back to those inquiries. Super important, whether you're full or not, get back to those inquiries and communicate with parents. So we could talk forever.
I was going to say.
I hope you guys have found some value from this. Just to kind of recap some of the points, you know, make sure you're involved in the day-to-day run of the business. Put level 10 meetings in place to make it easier for people to communicate if you're not so involved in the day-to-day. Be careful how much you invest at the start in your startup costs. Have money for marketing. Super important to have. Clear KPIs and accountability.
Yeah.
So everyone's accountable. Owners and directors know what they're doing, where they spend their time.
Yeah.
And last one, sales. Do you want to touch on that one? Who's responsible?
Just please, owners.
Yeah, get back to them, or train team members to make sure they're doing it. Yeah. Don't put on the directors of management. They've got enough going on as it is. Let them focus on the day-to-day operation. Get someone to focus on the sales and marketing. So hope you guys found this useful. If there's any questions, pop them in down below. Jen, I will get back to you. If there's any particular topics or sessions you'd like to do, I'm sure Jen would love to do this again. If there's any particular topics or things you'd like us to discuss in the future, let us know. If you like this style of podcast, I know it's longer, but hopefully you guys like this. If there's any other things you want us to talk about in the future, let us know. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Give us a like, make sure you subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next